Hello, today we're going to start by looking at this verse from Song of Songs, chapter 2, verse 2. It says, "Like a lily among the thorns, so is my darling among the young women." So here, of course, the groom, being Christ, is admiring the beauty of the church portrayed by this young woman who resembles this beautiful lily among the thorns. And so we'll talk about the significance of this by looking at other passages as well. The first question that we want to answer is, what makes someone attractive to God? What does he find beautiful about someone? And we see this in 1 Peter 3, where it's talking about wives, although this same principle applies to everybody. It says, "In the same way, you wives, be subject to your own husbands, so that even if any of them are disobedient to the word, they may be won over without a word by the behavior of their wives, as they observe your pure and respectful behavior. Your adornment must be merely the external, braiding the hair, wearing gold jewelry, or putting on apparel, but it should be the hidden person of the heart, with the imperishable quality of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is precious in the sight of God." And as I stated before, this same principle applies to every believer. Our submission to Christ is what God finds attractive and beautiful about the church. The purity of our behavior and reverence for the Lord is also an adornment for us. That isn't anything external, obviously, but it's the hidden qualities of our heart that are Christ-like. This is precious in His sight. And so every quality that we can attain that is Christ-like is going to be attractive to Him. In Luke 12, Jesus brings up lilies as well. He says, "Consider the lilies, how they grow. They neither labor nor spin. But I tell you, not even Solomon in all his glory clothed himself like one of these." Again, so this idea of external adornment is one that maybe a lot of people would seek after. Yet we know that it is the internal qualities, the internal sanctifying work of the Holy Spirit that we submit and surrender to on a daily basis that allows us to have this internal adornment that God sees as beautiful. The lily is also a common motif or image used for the temple of God in Jerusalem. Here from 1 Kings 7, it says the capitals which were on top of the pillars in the porch were of lily design. So this is a common image used, and again, I believe referencing the beauty, the holiness, the purity of the church that God brings about through the working of the Holy Spirit. Now, as for the thorns, they are also a very common instrument used all throughout the Bible. We know this from early on in Genesis 3, where it says, "Cursed is the ground because of you. With hard labor you shall eat from it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall grow for you. Yet you shall eat the plants of the field." So the thistle and the thorn are both results of and symbols of sin in the world. And they also represent, in a lot of ways, futility or vanity or a lack of production. That with sin, there's a lack of profit or production from the earth, from our lives, and from everything in creation. So sin is represented very commonly by thorns. 2 Samuel 23 says, "But the worthless, every one of them, are like scattered thorns, because they cannot be taken in hand. Instead, the man who touches them must be armed with iron and the shaft of a spear, and they will be completely burned with fire in their place." So we see often as well the result of thorns and thistles. The thorns and thistles are to be removed from anything being productive, like the tending of a garden, and thrown into the fire. Proverbs 22:4 says, "The reward of humility and the fear of the Lord are riches, honor, and life. Thorns and snares are in the way of the perverse. One who guards himself will be far from them." So these thorns and snares represent sin, temptation, those things that halt us or arrest our proximity or approaching of the Lord, that make the path and make our journey more difficult, that hold us back as well. Jeremiah 12:13 says, "They have sown wheat, but have harvested thorns. They have strained themselves to no profit." So again, the thorn represents putting in labor, putting work and energy into something, but because of sin, there is no profit, there is no yield, there is no abundance. So be ashamed of your produce because of the fierce anger of the Lord. It represents the withdrawal of God's blessing because of sin or because of disobedience. Ezekiel 2:6 says, And as for you, Son of Man, you are not to fear them, nor fear their words. Though thistles and thorns are with you, and you sit on scorpions, you are not to fear their words, nor be dismayed at their presence, since they are a rebellious house. And so here's the admonition to Ezekiel the prophet. He was a lily among thorns. In the same way, the church is meant to be a lily among the thorns of the world, that regardless of any threat or any resistance, the church is meant to stand tall, just like a lily among the thorns of the world, to be pure, to be holy, to be obedient and virtuous, no matter what the resistance or temptation may be. Lastly, we have this from Matthew 27:29. It says, "And after twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on his head, and put a reed in his right hand. And they knelt down before him and mocked him, saying, 'Hail, King of the Jews.'" Here we have the ultimate result of sin. This sin is represented as this crown which Christ wore. At the very peak of his agony, anguish, and suffering, this crown was a reminder of why he was there. It was for our sin. This is the ultimate result of sin, God's judgment, which Christ chose to take upon himself, suffering for the sins of others. And here we have the ultimate act of love, Christ, the groom, taking the thorns from the bride, which she deserved, that sin, because of his great love for the church, that the church may receive in turn his righteousness imparted to us, making us white as a lily by his grace, as a gift, granting us that virtue and that holiness by the blood of Christ. What an amazing thing that God chose us to be that lily among the thorns, that he lifted us up by his grace, not by anything that we've done on our own. Take care.